Well, it had to come to an end. The summer of joy is over, and Kamala Harris's momentum seems to be coming to a screeching halt. Donald Trump is now beating Vice President Harris by 1 point in a New York Times head-to-head matchup. The Gray Lady suggesting that Harris's support has stalled after a euphoric August. The big problem for the vice president, an overwhelming majority of voters think the country is headed in the wrong direction, and this is considered a change election. 55% think Harris represents more of the same, while 61% see Donald Trump as representing change. CNN's election guru sounding some alarm.
Look at polls that have come out over the last week or so, and what do we see? We see a much tighter race. We see a tie in the CBS YouGov poll. We see a tie in the CNN SSRS poll. And this, to me, is part of an emerging pattern, which is in a very pivotal state. What we saw was a small Harris lead, but within the margin of error, becoming a race that is way, way, way too close to call at this particular point, one that is even.
It seems that Kamala Harris might be back to being the incumbent after being apparently brand new.
You know, I'd like to make a point.
No, I'd love for you to hear.
You know, do you know that Kat's book comes out? Mm-hmm. It's about being binary and non-binary and all that stuff. I think the media is tricking the public into a binary choice. If you don't like Trump, your only choice is Harris. And you have these odious never-Trump Republicans echoing this, and they're selling out all their core values, whether it's capitalism, taxes, immigration, or crime, saying if you don't like Trump because it's a big meanie, you have no choice but to vote for a profoundly radical leftist. Mm-hmm. Well, in 2016, I did not vote for Trump. I didn't like him as a candidate. But that didn't mean I voted for Hillary. I just didn't vote. Actually, I think I wrote in Ruth Buzzy. But I didn't, but the thing is, they're trying to trick you into thinking that not voting is somehow not a vote. It actually is a vote. You are not required to vote for the other side because you don't like your guy. Right now, you have people in Kamala's camp imploring people voting for her to convince others, to explain their choice, to make the case, because Kamala can't make the case herself. She's like a criminal suspect who sends her family out to speak on her behalf because she's behind bars, except she's not behind bars. No one's holding her back. You don't need word of mouth if you have a working mouth, right? You have Mark Cuban, who's a good guy, talking about how he speaks to her daily and often and claims that he understands her and what she stands for. Well, that's nice that you have that knowledge with her. Is this campaign strategy going to be one big game of telephone where you talk to her and then you go on MSNBC or CNBC? No, maybe talk less to Cuban and talk to us. Cut out the translator, cut out the middleman. Don't think it's going to happen.
There's rumors that her campaign is in some disarray, some meltdown going on.
Well, I'm like an open nerve ending, Dana, and I was feeling this deterioration for about a week and a half while Jessica was poo-pooing, heavy poo-pooing. I don't even want to say how much poo-pooing there was, but it was significant.
Let it go.
So the New York Times comes out, it's tied, and I predict she'll call this an outlier, and so I will say preemptively that the Pew poll and Harris-Harvard poll also has a tie race. Therefore, a tie race means a Trump landslide. Right now, the New York Times, according to the latest poll, Jessica, gives Donald Trump a 99% chance of winning this election. Nate Silver now, who it's been like 2 weeks every day, the probability of Trump winning this election increases, now gives Donald Trump a 64% chance of winning this election. Great stuff from these polls, great stuff. Trump is more moderate than Kamala Harris. Harris is seen as too progressive. Another great point. Trump is more popular than he ever was in 16 and in 20. And in a change election, Trump is seen as the candidate who will bring change. And this country wants radical change. We're going in the wrong direction. The economy's in a bad place. And Harris is seen as someone directly tied to the status quo and to Joe Biden. Kamala had this strategy that she was just going to take 3 weeks off and not define herself and just be vague, mysterious Kamala. That backfired. Trump filled the vacuum. Other people filled it. Her team couldn't fill it. And now everybody's either like, who is this woman? Or, no, she's a California socialist.
What do you think, Jessica?
I think a lot of things about what Jesse said, but I do like that we're now so in sync that you can preempt me because outlier was definitely going to come out of my mouth, but I got more to back it up. Anyway, I didn't see the 99% likelihood forecast.
I'll show it to you in the break.
No, I'm not doubting it. I'm just saying there was also a 99% chance that Hillary was going to win and Donald Trump did. So throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Great.
How'd that go?
It was a traumatic 4 years, but lived to tell the tale, and then Biden won.
Did he?
If the New York Times...
Oh, gosh.
You be careful. So the thing with the New York Times Siena poll, which is an A-plus poll. This isn't, like some junk poll that people are walking around saying, this is it. But if it were to bear out the findings that they came to, that would be the greatest racial and generational realignment since the 1960s. And this would have happened in one cycle. So if we're to believe that Kamala's only up 3 points with 18 to 29-year-olds, when all of the evidence of how young people vote flies in the face of that, or that she's only up 55 points with black voters. Now, do I think Donald Trump will get more black voters than maybe he did even in 2020? Sure. But I don't think that she's going to be that short on it. And also her advantage with women who have been turning out in droves to vote since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. She's only up 10 with them in this poll. So if the New York Times Siena poll said to me, Donald Trump is going to take every white working class voter in this country, I would have an easier time believing that than she's only going to win by 3 points with 18 to 29-year-olds.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Joy only gets you so far. And, Judge, what do you think about the strategy of sitting on that lead for 3 weeks and letting Trump define her, and well, they basically sat back?
It's a shame. I mean, the truth is that I thought it was longer. I mean, even if I don't really see the debate, the interview with the coach as a real interview. I mean, so for me, it's like 7 weeks allowing herself to not be out there and answer questions and allowing other people to define her. That's a negative. That means that everything is going to depend on tomorrow night. So she is allowed all this time to pass, either because she's weak, she's not smart, or she has to memorize her lines because she doesn't know about the policy, or she doesn't agree with the policy, or she doesn't remember what she said last time about the policy, that she's afraid to go out, and that's why she's got to memorize her lines. But that period of time she has lost, and shame on her. She needs to worry because she didn't do that. And that's why when you've got 28% of the people who say she doesn't know what she stands for, or we don't know what she stands for, and you tie that into the 5% who were truly undecided, that makes for a very fluid race. We've got a lot of people who don't really know what's going on, but Trump's support is very resilient. And her support among the Latinos and young people is not as strong as the traditional Democrat support. That's why she's not as strong as other Democrats have been. And that's why you're going to see a different number coming out of the race ultimately. But I think that Trump's lead, he's seen as more centrist candidate. Why? I think that it's because maybe it's RFK, maybe it's Tulsi Gabbard, maybe it's because 4 years later we say to ourselves, you know what, he wasn't as crazy as the media tried to take him out to be. And I think there's another really important point, and I have it here, and I'm trying to figure out what it was. The change candidate. The fact that 44% think she's a progressive tells me that she hasn't said anything in the last 3.5 years. It tells me that she's so tied to Biden that she can't get away from him. And that's going to hurt her.
Okay, well, tomorrow night is the night. But coming up next, some bad news for the last person in the room, Kamala Harris. The House GOP releasing a scathing report on the deadly Afghanistan withdrawal.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.